Trevor, can I just ask one question?
Okay, only one, you just did.
Sorry. The constraint that you have of 36 words, is there any reason it's 36?
Yeah, there's a particular... Okay, I came across, I got a book many years ago on the Prado, and just looking through the pictures in it, there was one which I found very strange. It was showing sort of a couple of sides of a square of a sort of where there were tables laid out, and obviously there was a banquet going on, sort of early Renaissance banquet or something like that, and you had cups and plates and so on topping off the table, and you've got a very elaborate embroidered tents and so on in the background, all these courtiers around, but they're looking shocked. And in the foreground out there near you being the viewers, there's a horseman in armour and his hounds, and the hounds are pulling down a naked woman who's running. This is really, really strange for a Renaissance picture. It turned out to be by Botticelli, and it's one of a series of 3 paintings that's in the Prado. There's a 4th, which is in I think a private collection somewhere in Italy. But they're illustrating a particular story from the Decameron by Boccaccio, and I can't remember the Nastagio dell'Onesti or something like this is the king's name in it, but let's call him Nasty. It's this guy living in Florence in the early Renaissance, and he gets the hots for some woman who's living there, and he goes along, propositions her, she doesn't get lost, and he's overcome by melancholy, and goes off with his sort of all his bunch of cronies. They go out to the Pineta, this pine wood on the outskirts of Florence, and he leaves them to put up the tents and all the rest of it. Obviously they're doing an elaborate job of camping, and he goes off to wander on his own in the woods. And as he's wandering, he hears a sound coming towards him, and he looks up and he's approaching the glade, and into this opening in the woods, a naked woman runs in, being pursued by dogs who are pulling her down, and then this armed horseman, a knight, comes in, and the knight is sort of drawing his dagger, and the young guy sort of steps forward. He says, "No, stop! What's going on here? You can't do this." And the knight says, "Hey, hold your wish. I am such and such," naming somebody who was alive 50 years earlier or something like that, and I was in love with this woman in our lifetime, and she gave me the bum's rush. So I went off and died of lovelornness, and she, of course, shortly after realised her guilt in the matter, and likewise topped herself or something like this. And now, for all eternity, we are condemned at these particular times to in the places where we used to dally in life. We run through these, and the hunt is pursued in this way. And the young man says something to the effect of, "Oh, that's a very interesting and totally convincing explanation," stands back, lets the hounds drag her down. The knight gets off, cuts out her heart, throws it to the hounds, who devour it. Then she resurrects and runs off. The hounds pursue her again, the horseman gets up, and the hunt continues. So, light bulb goes on overhead, and the guy heads back with his cronies into Florence and says, "Hey lads, we're having a party, this day next week, Friday next week at 4 p.m. in the Pineta, get your friends." So they all head out, and he sets up a banquet in good time, and he gets the woman that he had the hots for, and she's there as well, sort of, and he's saying, "I know I'm not going to talk to you, but here, have an ice cream." And just at that moment, surprisingly, they hear this thing happen, and the same as with him, the horseman comes through pursuing her, and of course all the big men get up and they say, no, hands off, and the guy gives the same explanation to them, and the hunt goes on. And this is the moment that you get in the painting by Botticelli, which is the 3rd in the series. And in the last one in the series by Botticelli, you have the wedding, because of course she has seen the error of her ways from this, she's heaven and nature is against her, and she's been acting in a completely irrational fashion. So she gives way. So I liked the idea that you had in this painting. I was just really, really struck by it. You have this thing of a banquet going on at the same time as this woman is actually being devoured. Her heart is being eaten by the dogs. So you have the human eating and being eaten. You have, in both cases, it's a very civil, courteous activity. It's full of courtly elaborateness. But the way in which it's cyclical, that this is continuing to happen throughout all eternity. You have an intersection. You know that painting by Holbein, The Ambassadors, where you've got the skull in the foreground, and it's shown at a different angle. It's in a different dimension from all the furs and metals and precious metals and so on that are around. It struck me that this is a little bit the same. It's not done perspectively differently, but in terms of social, in the middle of a banquet, you've got a hunt. It doesn't fit. You've got a mismatch. So I love that sense. But also the notion, as I say, that this is going on throughout eternity. It's eternal return. So I thought, for many, many years, about over 30 years, I was thinking about how the hell I would love to tackle this in poetry. So I thought of a way of doing it. And I thought the sestina, the sestina form, the way the words, you don't have rhyme. What you have is the repetition of the exact same words, end words for the lines, throughout each one. So you have a repetition. Not echoing, not change, not parallelism with change, repetition, variation. You have exact repetition. So I thought this is exactly the form to do. But then I thought, well, hang on a second, let's take it a bit further. Wouldn't it be perfect if you think of it, you've got, if you ignore the last 3 lines of a sestina, you've got 6 stanzas, 6 lines in each. So 6 by 6. Well, hang on a second, let's make it a cube. What about if you had 6 words in each line, and those were actually the rhyme words, and they were just in a different order each time? So you'd have a 6 by 6 cube of using just 6 words. So that's great, okay, I'll write a poem just using 6 words. And then I thought, well, it might get a bit boring. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is allow for, you've got, as it were, this as an ideal form coming down, the same way you've got the hunt, the same way you've got the skull in the Holbein painting. So imagine you've got this, as it were, perfect 6 by 6 by 6 poem, this cube. And imagine that it's going through, in each of the dimensions, each of the 3 dimensions, it's undergoing a degradation. So what I wanted to do was to get 6 words, each of which had 6 distinct meanings. And each of those 6 distinct meanings, being indicated by a specific word, has a further 6 distinct meanings. Okay?
Yeah.
So, for instance, and all of these must be connected, the head words must be connected to the actual story. So one of them, for instance, was game. Think of the idea of a hunter hunts game. Also, you have all of the game playing, at the banquet and, in courtly society. Okay, so there's easily 6 words which are quite distinct and which are all synonyms in different senses for the word game. So one is toy. Okay? So, okay, now toy has also, it's one of the words that was successful for me, it's possible to develop 6 words which are all synonyms in different senses for toy. One of them was doll. Do you remember the poem there about if it lies long and winking at the dark, then it's not real? Mm-hmm. She has a figure, this one, and what hair, and such hair or whatever. If she lies long and winking at the dark, then if it lies long and winking at the dark, then it's not real. It's a doll. Mm-hmm. So the 36 words was based on the idea of 6 by 6. It's part, each of these individual sections. There would be 216 of them. What?
Did you manage to write a perfect?
No, I gave up. In the end, I could do all of the stuff, but it was boring me because there wasn't the same level of rigour at each point. It looked as though it was something totally rigorous and determining, and it would be interesting to operate with something that was really that almost inhuman, and to try and generate, actually humanity within it. But when I looked at it, it wasn't actually that. It was too easy to go around it and mess.
It sounds like mathematical poetry.
Yeah, well,
as in when you explain it like
yeah,
that.
well, remember I was a business analyst.
I know, yeah. It was interesting.
Those spreadsheets.
There's spreadsheets is a nice experiment.
Yes.
So does that answer your question?
Yes.